What's up, basketball world? Welcome to episode 1 of Spittin Hoops, I guess, which is our new podcast. It's with me and my good friend Anthony, who's right here. And basically, we just started this to kind of have a younger voice and productive basketball discourse, and that's what we're going to try to contribute. We're going to have a lot of fun with it, with different segments and whatnot, and we hope you guys stick around and watch. So yeah, Anthony, do you want to give a little intro? What's up?
Hey, how we doing? Future audience, super happy to be having this. And honestly, if we don't have a single follower or subscriber, that's all right, because we just love to talk about basketball. So we'll do it no matter what.
Exactly. So, with that, just a little basketball background info. Anthony, if you want to hop in, obviously you're a Celtics fan. I'm a Warriors fan. What's a moment that kind of like stands out to you where you really started following the game of basketball?
Yeah, so I never really was a basketball fan when I was a kid. I wasn't much of a sports fan in general. So the most I knew about basketball in the mid 2000s was Carmelo Anthony is good. I actually called him Anthony Carmelo one time. I knew that Kobe was amazing. And that was pretty much like what I knew. I knew Michael Jordan was the GOAT, but I just didn't know much about it. And I knew the Celtics were trash. I knew Paul Pierce was really good, and that was about it for a while. And then so I became a fan once we acquired KG and Ray Allen, and I still didn't really know much at the time, but that was when my interest started peaking. And so that was definitely when I got into basketball. What about you, Max?
Oh, for me, it's kind of the same deal. I mean, around like 2007, 2008, I was like, obviously like tiny, right? I didn't really know about sports that much, but I had a family friend who would like drag me to Warriors games. Not drag me, I was down to go, but like we were horrible back then, right? Like just absolutely terrible. And the tickets were super cheap. So our family friend would always drag us to these games. And from there, I kind of became a fan. And that ended up being the year before and then the year of the We Believe season for the Warriors. And then like, obviously, if you're a Warriors fan during that time, like you beat the Mavericks as an 8-1 series. Like it's hard to not be a fan after that. And then we got Stephen Curry, and I've been living life good for the last like 10 years. So that's been cool. So as we like get into this, obviously, we just want to recap some NBA storylines right now. Obviously there's been a lot of big ones in the media sphere lately. The first one I personally want to talk about is the Ja Morant situation. That to me has been so spicy and honestly a little bit overly covered by the media, in my opinion. Obviously Ja Morant, he was caught on Instagram Live at a strip club with a gun. Eventually the NBA did an investigation alongside the Colorado State Police. Nothing was found to be illegal about the matter. But he was suspended, I believe it was 8 to 10 games, something like that. He did return, I believe it was on Wednesday, so 2 days ago, off the bench. And he just looks like
well.
Yeah, he just looks like Ja Morant. He looks great.
Yeah.
Anthony, do you have any thoughts on that situation? I personally have a good amount of thoughts, but I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I just hope Ja Morant's doing well. I thought what Jalen Rose said on ESPN a couple weeks ago was a great point. He's in control of all this money and he's really young. What is he, 23 years old? 22, 23. So, I mean, that's a young age. And so to be sort of in control of your whole, you're now the man, you're in charge of everything. So, but it seems like he went to get help. Hopefully that help was good for him. It definitely adds to the spice of the Grizzlies, man. I mean, just so many characters on that team after what happened with Shannon Sharp and then Dylan Brooks' antics this whole season, which I'm a fan of, honestly. I won't hate on him, but look, man, at the end of the day, I think Ja Morant is a good person. And I think he's been great for Memphis and they're a really exciting young team to watch. So I'm glad he's back. And hopefully he doesn't he doesn't find himself in any future trouble and we get to keep seeing him ball out.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with like 99% of that. The 1% is the part about liking Dylan Brooks. Like, can't get behind that, obviously. But yeah, I mean, Ja Morant, he like clearly he said it himself. He needed help. He got some help. He's back. And like that's fine and all, but now that he's back, there seems to be like still a really mass media coverage of him and his situation and like them taking flights to leave cities early and whatnot, which almost seems like a lack of trust for the players who are like full adults, right? And that's kind of my base issue with this whole thing. It's like if he got help and he didn't need to get suspended and there's nothing illegal about it. I mean, I'm also not the biggest Grizzlies lover to say the least. Like I'm a Warriors fan, right? But it seems a little bit overblown. I mean, we have players on NBA rosters like Anthony Lamb who have open, rape allegations against them, and they don't get half of the media coverage of this, right? And obviously stature is a big part of that. He just had his Nike deal. There's a lot of big parts with that, but it's just a little bit disheartening to see like a situation like this, which is clearly more of a mental health struggle that a personal player is having. It gets more media coverage than, rape allegations from an NBA player, right? So that's kind of my stance on it. I don't really understand why it's getting so much media coverage. But like Team Morant showed up in the redemption sweatshirt. It's like Ja messed up, but like, does he really need to like redeem himself to the mass public? And as much as that interview with Jalen Rose was great, I almost feel like I don't know why there needed to be like a public service announcement, right? Like Ja messed up. We got all the reports from it on like a play-by-play from Shams, right? Like we knew what was going on, and it almost feels like extra. And then he came back off the bench, but the Grizzlies still played him like 25 to 30 minutes. So it was like, what was the point of that? Like, it feels like a lot. I think Grizzlies fans would agree. It's just like too much. It's always in the media sphere, and it kind of doesn't even make sense, in my opinion, for it to be in the media sphere that much, right? That's kind of my take on it. I do think, I don't know what you think about this. I think it very well could affect their long-term outlook in terms of this season. Just like it kind of fucks with the vibes, if we're being real. Like, I don't know. Like, I've never seen a championship team have their best player miss 10 games for a personal matter at the back end of a regular season. Because before this, I thought they were the Western Conference favorites, right? So that's kind of my perspective on it. I don't know if you have anything to add, Anthony, but.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it too. I didn't really take the Grizzlies too seriously this year. Even before this happened, I mean, I think they're a great team. I think they're a tough out, and I don't count them out in any series that they play, especially in the West. But I think there's, even though the West is a little bit muddled right now, I think there's a lot of talent in the West. And so I didn't necessarily think that this was going to be their chip year. Plus, I'm more concerned about the injuries, especially with Steven Adams and Brandon Clark. So we'll talk about that. But I think that this might not be their year regardless.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I'm not a Steven Adams believer. I feel like that man can't play in the playoffs ever. And then he has good regular seasons, right? And then he can't switch. So in the playoffs, he plays 20 minutes a game. So I'm not the biggest believer of him, but definitely like the Brandon Clark injury, big deal. Like even obviously their best player missing 10 games back in the regular season is a big deal, even if you think they're a contender or not. But yeah. Moving on, your favorite team, Anthony, very much in the media sphere with their boy Jaylen Brown. Obviously he had his comments. If people don't know, right, he has an impending free agency. It's going to be, I think he's going to re-sign, let's be real. But if he makes All-NBA this year, he'll be eligible for a Supermax extension. And Jaylen kind of came out with some comments saying, I want to be here, but he understands the business of the NBA. And then he also made some kind of interesting comments about the fans in general. Not ones that I personally disagree with, but it was definitely interesting. So I don't know what you have to say about it, Anthony.
What I actually didn't see about the comments about the fans. What do you say about the fans?
Well, just basically, I mean, he kind of suggested a few times that the fan base, there's portions of the fan base that might be a little bit more destructive or problematic compared to other portions of the fan base. But to be honest, I feel like that's nothing new from like what we've heard out of Boston for a long time. So
yeah. Totally. Well, I mean, look, man, Jaylen Brown, I would love the opportunity to meet him, honestly, one day, because he's one of the smartest dudes. Went to Cal. So I think that everything he says, has an intention to it. I know he's really involved in the NBA union as well. So that's big for me. I hope he stays. He's been amazing, man. Him and Tatum, rather. play so well together. I didn't really take too much from this comment. I think he understands that at the end of the day, this is a business. And so he is going to do what's best for him, and the Celtics are going to do what's best for them. And hopefully that's staying together. As it comes to the fans, I think he's very cognizant of him, of racism in Boston. We've seen especially during the Black Lives Matter movement, how vocal he was and has been in general. So I feel like he has been able to compartmentalize those two factors as well. That being said, it does definitely harken back to Bill Russell and his experience in Boston. So I definitely think that Boston in and of itself is definitely a problematic city in certain aspects, but hopefully that doesn't really affect his decision-making here. And I mean, the Celtics damn better do right by him by making sure that they make him feel as comfortable as possible.
Yeah, and I think clearly he has like a lot of awareness of his situation. I mean, he talked about how like he saw the KD rumors and hopped on like a three-way call with Tatum and Brad Stevens, right? Like clearly they have some sort of open dialogue or the ability to have one, which I think is super productive for that organization. But you know, it is a little interesting because he's kind of in a weird spot where it's like he's an amazing player, right? And he's fantastic. But the fact that we haven't seen him lead a team personally just yet is like if Giannis is available for a trade, Jaylen Brown's going to be offered up, you know, like there's going to be players that the Boston Celtics are willing to trade for, including like Jaylen Brown in a package going the other way. Right. So like it's kind of inevitable. I think when you're kind of such a good B tier option, you're kind of the best possible player that a team trading an A tier option can, you know, get. Usually you're not trading A tier options for A tier options. Right. So that's kind of like, I think it's like the unfortunate reality of the situation, but I don't see him leaving. Like it works too well. They just made a finals. He's young. Tatum's young. I don't know.
Yeah. They got plenty of time. So, you know, the grass is always greener on the other side. And I don't know. I don't know. The landscape of the NBA is so murky right now. And so hopefully he stays on.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And personally, I wouldn't trade him for KD. I'm happy, like as an NBA fan, that they didn't, because like just as an organization, like I don't know, I feel like it works. But we'll revisit some Jaylen Brown discussions later in the podcast. Obviously, some last two current events that I think are kind of just important to touch on. First is the play-in battle in the West. Obviously, on Wednesday, we saw the Warriors basically take a 2 or 3 game swing over the Mavericks with that win because they get the tiebreaker as well. And then we also saw last night the Clippers beat OKC. OKC gets knocked down almost 4 spots in the playoff picture. You know, LA is still obviously, you know, in there. The Lakers, the T-Wolves, they're kind of floating around. Do you have any predictions, any, you know, takes on the Western Conference play-in picture, and potentially what it means for the rest of the playoffs out of the Western Conference?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Looking at the standings right now, we see that between the 4 all the way down to the 12 spot, it's a 3 game difference. So looking at Phoenix and LA, they're tied, and then they're a game ahead of the Dubs. And then in that play-in, you have a team in the Timberwolves that's a game behind the Warriors, and then the Mavs, Lakers, and Pelicans and Thunder are all tied record-wise, both in wins and losses as well. So it's really going to come down to the wire. I don't see the Pelicans really advancing too much at the moment. I just think they've kind of lost their momentum. The Lakers, we'll see. They're on a bit of a stride right now, and it'll be interesting to see, especially with the prospect of LeBron coming back, what they can do there. The Timberwolves, I mean, they just got Cat back, and he played pretty well in his game. So maybe that kind of like inspires them to move forward. We can talk about Rudy Gobert on a time, but you know, shout out Walker Kessler. And the Jazz, I don't think the Jazz want to win, man. I think that they're trying to have a dark horse chance of getting Wemby. So I don't see the point. And the Thunder are scary. We'll see what the Thunder can do. I think that they have a shot of it, but honestly, I no fucking idea where this is gonna go.
Yeah, I mean, it's like an absolute mess. I will say, I think my take is like, I don't see it changing. Like, I don't see any teams that are in the play-in right now hopping out of the play-in. Specifically, so like the Warriors, I think were the biggest at-risk team of hopping back into the play-in, but they win that game against the Mavs. They have, I believe, a 4-game or 5-game homestand that's coming up right here. They're gonna win all 4. Like, they just win all their home games and lose all their
Yeah.
away games. So,
And
whatever.
to win at Mavs, right? They won at
Yeah.
Dallas, so that's big. They finally got a big road win against a potential playoff team.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that was also a big deal. Like, as a Warriors fan, like that was a big deal because Steph Curry he was like our best player, obviously, in the game, right? But the game wasn't about him. Like, when Warriors fans talk about the game, we talk about like Draymond and Kuminga. Like, we didn't talk about Steph at all. And like, I think that's a good sign, obviously. GP2 is coming back on Sunday, which is huge for the Warriors. That's going to finally, give some sort of defensive stability on the perimeter, like with the bench group. But I don't really see any of that changing. I could see the Warriors potentially passing like the Clippers or the Suns, honestly. The Suns, which the refs hate the Suns. I hate the Suns too, but the refs hate the Suns more than me. I don't know how. It's
The
crazy.
refs hate Chris Paul.
Yeah, the refs hate, which, it's kind of reasonable. But I mean, honestly, I think we'll probably see OKC, Dallas, and then Los Angeles, like the Lakers, and then from there, I mean, that last spot, we'll see. I kind of agree with you on the Jazz. I don't think the Jazz really almost want to make the play-in, like, to be honest. So we'll see. The T-Wolves, I think it might make them worse that they got Cat back, but that's like my sneaky take because I'm worried about the spacing when they do Gobert and Cat. But also Cat hasn't played in like 3 months. Maybe he's finally had some time to adjust his game. And also maybe he's kind of like, okay, I need to play on the perimeter more. So we'll kind of see like the long-term effects of that, but I don't know. It's a mess. I just don't see it changing very much.
Quick question for you. On the note about the both the refs for the Suns and that Warriors Mavs games. What'd you make of that crazy inbounds play?
Well, I watched the full game, obviously. The Mavericks got some of the most heinous calls I've ever seen. So to hear them complaining about the refs to me was like very funny. That was hilarious. But also on that play individually with the inbounds, the ref should not have inbounded the ball to Poole. But also the ref did call that it was the Warriors' ball. Like, I don't know. So it's like, why are the Mavericks, if they thought it was their ball, why are they lining up on the other side of the court? Like, there's so many aspects with that I found were really weird. And then finally with the protest, sure, the game ended within 2 points, but like the Warriors gave up a BS free 3 to Reggie Bullock at the end of regulation that, like, had they been trying, they probably wouldn't have given up, to be honest.
Right.
And that was the only reason the game ended up coming to like 2 points, right? Which was the margin that they said they would protest under. So like, I kind of think it's some BS, to be honest. And also just Luka complaining about the refs and then the Mavericks complaining about the refs as an organization is just hilarious to me, like in its core. So it is what it is. I don't know, the game was horribly reffed on both sides. Like, I cannot deny that. But we beat them, bro. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Right.
And then, okay, moving on. Last little take for current NBA stuff before we get into our little sections. MVP. I'm going to cue this up with kind of my own take, is we got 3 super qualified candidates to make MVP. It's like Embiid, Jokic, and Giannis, right? And I honestly would argue Tatum should be within that group, even though he's not. Like, I think it should be them 3, Tatum, and then a gap between everyone else, to be honest. But whoever wins MVP, that's kind of my take, and you can go off this. Does it really matter? Like, Giannis can get another MVP, probably deserves it. Jokic probably deserves a 3rd straight MVP if you look at the way he's playing. And I kind of understand the historical argument of like, Larry Bird was the last guy to do it. We don't want Jokic to be the guy, but if he deserved it, he deserved it. Like, that's not how this works. It's like LeBron. Sure, LeBron deserved 8 MVPs, but he didn't win them. Voters in the moment did not vote for him. So it's like, we can't just retroactively start giving him MVPs, right? Just like we can't retroactively take away MVPs from Jokic, right? That's not how this works. So, and then I think maybe you agree with me, but I probably think Embiid should win it, even though I don't love watching Embiid play, but I I don't think that Sixers team is actually that good. I think Harden still has like these horrible Harden games, like randomly. But that's kind of my take. I really don't think it matters that much. And maybe that's like kind of a boring take, but yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think the qualifications for an MVP change from year to year. And we've seen players be robbed of MVPs throughout the course of the NBA. So,
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I don't think that when it comes to like all time like rankings and who's better and this and that, I feel like nobody's putting, Kawhi Leonard does not have a regular season MVP. Steve Nash has two. But personally, I feel as though Kawhi Leonard has had maybe a slightly better career. I mean, on par, right? So like those two regular season MVPs don't really outweigh that much. Or if we want to do a more obvious example, Shaq or Kobe have one each. Steve Nash has two. So I think MVP kind of is taken with a grain of salt. It's obviously a fantastic award to win. They're all deserving for different reasons. I believe Giannis is the best player in the NBA. So it is MVP for that. I think Jokic has led his team to the number one seed in the Western Conference. It has been incredible and is averaging almost practically a triple-double, if not a triple-double. And I think he deserves it because he deserves it, much like you said. We're not comparing him to Larry Bird by doing that. And then for Embiid, I also think he's put up amazing numbers, and they've been on fire recently. So I'd probably give it to Embiid personally. But like you said, any of them deserve it. I think Giannis is the best player, and I typically think the best player should get it. I think Michael Jordan deserves more MVPs. I think LeBron deserves more. Kobe deserves more. So, but they don't have them because that's how this thing works. So I'm with you. I'm not really gonna be too upset about it, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, no, that's kind of exactly where my take lies. I mean, Giannis, I think, dude, I think Embiid would tell you Giannis is the best player in the NBA, like, to be honest. But that's not always how it is, right? Like, D Rose won an MVP. No one thought D Rose was the best player in the NBA, but people thought that he had the best season, right? And then sometimes like you get other awards that might be a little bit more career oriented, like Russell Westbrook won his MVP for putting down a triple-double. What, in my opinion, Harden should have won it. But Russ had been doing that since KD left, and people want to give him credit for it. Like, that's just the way it works. Like, it's not really going to influence our long-term standing, right? So, yeah. With that, we've gone over a lot of the current NBA storylines, and
are we at where I think we are in this podcast?
Yes, we are. Yeah. So we're going to get to our first section, our first little game, right? And this is where Anthony's going to have to nut up, and he's going to have to give me some takes. So this section is called What's Your Take? So I'm going to give about 4 to 5 quick fire questions. Anthony's just going to he doesn't know them actually. He's going to have to answer them really quickly. And then if he's got an interesting answer, we'll swing it back to him, and he'll give us a little reason why. Okay. He has that take. So for the first question in What's Your Take, and this got to be quick fire, Anthony. Be ready. Who's going to win the championship?
Oh, chip this year. Hope it's Celtics. Right now, slight gut says Bucks.
Okay. Would you take the Celtics and the Bucks in a bet against the field?
Yes, I would.
Okay. If any team blows it up due to a first round exit, if any of them do, which team could it be?
If a team blows it up based on a first round exit, who would it be? Great question. Looking at it now, I'm going to say most likely Clippers or Sixers.
Okay.
Sixers first and then Clippers.
Ooh, okay. Well, we'll talk about that. Which lottery team has the least promising future at this point in the season?
Well, getting Wemby changes everything. So if we're assuming that like that's not a factor in this, I guess the Spurs, I think they have like some good young talent for sure. I don't necessarily see their direction. And if not the Spurs, then the Hornets. And the reason I don't put them below them is because they have LaMelo Ball, and he's spectacular compared to anybody on the Spurs. So,
okay.
those two teams are pretty middling, as well as the Wizards.
Which teams that are vying for the play-in, which team specifically needs to make it? If we're gonna attach that label to any team, which team would it be?
Oh, Lakers, absolutely, definitely.
Okay.
Just for the interest of the sport, nobody gives a crap about anybody in. We haven't talked about the Eastern Conference playing, even though those games are kind of close. But I don't care if the Pacers make it. The Lakers, I hope they make the playoffs just for entertainment's sake.
Okay, perfect. So that was the 5 little takes. That was a little spicy. First one I want to go over: 76ers. You think if they got first rounded, people would start getting traded?
Yeah, I think that I said Clippers at first, and then the reason I walked that back is because of the Paul George injury. So there's a little bit more kind of like perspective that I'm giving to them. If the Suns do get KD back in due time, right now they're the 4-5 matchup, so they have a really tough first round series. And so for them to lose, I don't think that's nearly as like indicative of they've been dealing with injuries all season. Whereas the Sixers, they've been pretty healthy, pretty cohesive. Tyrese Maxey's playing really, really well. So if they were to go out and lose, like to right now, the Heat are the 6th seed. If they go on, they lose to the Heat in the first round. I think Daryl Morey's going to have to take a long, hard look at like what this team is doing wrong. I also think Embiid has been fortunate to avoid some criticism due to lack of playoff success. Not saying he's not an amazing player, but we're hearing about how Jokic has been getting all the slander for not going very far. He's made a conference finals. Embiid has yet to make the conference finals. So I do think that, for a big man like Embiid, especially given his injury history, although he's been relatively healthy of late, that clock ticks for everyone. So I'm curious to see what the Sixers do. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I came up with this question, I was definitely thinking about the Clippers, and I kind of came up with this question before the Paul George injury. But I definitely agree that in some sense, the Paul George injury kind of, for a little bit, like if they get knocked out in the first round, but it's a super close series, they're probably not going to freak out just yet. If Paul George is back and they get first rounded by the Kings, different discussion. But like, I don't think it's as much of a black and white thing with the Clippers. With the Sixers, though, do you think Harden could be gone? He's obviously a free agent after this year, and there's been a lot of links with the Rockets and him just deciding to go back. But I also think if you're the Sixers, you re-sign him to keep the asset, and then you figure it out later. But I don't know what you think on that.
Yeah, I also have heard the report about the Rockets. Maybe he just misses the strip clubs down there, dude, but I don't really get like what the purpose of that is. They're mid at best. Like, is he going to wait to see if they get Wemby? Then I could see it maybe. But that team has to develop a little bit. So I don't get the point if they don't get Wembanyama. Then go for it. But I don't know. I just think that it's another season of like, hey, look how good we are and are trying to be, and we still can't get past the first round. Whether it's the Heat, whether it's the Hawks, they just kind of keep losing to teams that overperform every single time. It's like teams kind of see the Sixers in the playoffs and go, sweet. So we'll see. But right now they're the team where I'm like, this is the season you have to prove that you can make it to that conference finals at least.
Yeah, and especially if Embiid wins, that microscope is going to be gigantic. Like if he wins MVP, that microscope is going to be huge, right? But I definitely agree with your take, and on the Jokic versus Embiid thing, like Embiid kind of he doesn't necessarily get a pass, right, for never making it very far in the playoffs, but like the best team he ever had Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons at his peak, like peak Ben Simmons, as much as whatever that means. But
it was he was
an all NBA player.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, Tobias Harris, JJ Redick, and they got second rounded, right? Like Jokic has never had a team close to that good. And obviously they came up against the Raptors and Kawhi was on one, but like in that comparison, like I kind of feel like Jokic should get way more the benefit of the doubt there. Also, because Jokic in the playoffs when he goes is like he does even better than the regular season. It's just his team's bad. But that's actually kind of where I was going to push back. I think Denver is the answer for this. If Denver gets first rounded, Jamal Murray's gone, MPJ's gone, half that team's gone. Like Aaron Gordon, he was great at the beginning of the season, but like, let's see Aaron Gordon in the playoffs. Like, I'm not the biggest believer in him, to be honest. I think Jokic does a lot of good for him offensively. And I think like if they get first rounded, like everyone's on the table. Like if there's a big star, for example, that's up for trade, if Brad Beal becomes available, dude, they're gonna throw MPJ and 3 firsts at the Wizards for Brad Beal, right? That's kind of what I would think if they got first rounded. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think I honestly hadn't even considered them as a team that could get first rounded. So, but I can definitely see that.
Yeah, like it would be crazy, obviously, like if like the Lakers, right, were the 8th seed and they first rounded the Nuggets, but
right, or say the Warriors, I don't think they'll slip, but if they happen to slip and we're like the 7 playing and then like lost and then won and we're the 8th seed and Denver's like, oh, that's who we get to play, awesome, that's championship medal, and if it goes 7. If it goes 7 games and then the Warriors continue to advance to the playoffs, then if I'm a Nuggets fan, I might look at it like, okay, like at least the pieces are here. I hear what you're saying. Like if they kind of lose to a mid first round team, then it's context dependent.
That's fair. That's fair. And then another thing, just the other take I want to dig in on, the least promising lottery team, the Spurs. So, do you give them credit for their organizational structure / consistency over the last 20 years, or have we kind of gone past that point?
Okay. I first, I think I do need to amend my take a little bit. I think that their structure, like they have proven that their culture is incredible. I think their big thing is they need talent like any team. But honestly, I was mostly just looking at teams that have already been eliminated. Now I'm going to factor in all the rest of the teams. I don't know what the Wizards' path forward is. So this is a slight tangent from what I was saying. I think the Spurs can like kind of either create a path. I don't necessarily see it, but they have a history of being able to show that they can kind of rise to the occasion when they need to. I don't get it with the Wizards, honestly. You have a Bradley Beal Supermax deal. You have Kyle Kuzma, you have Porzingis. You have these guys that can all put up 20 points, but like don't really form a cohesive unit. Did you see the Spencer Dinwiddie interview relatively recently where he was talking about there was no cohesion agenda to it. So I'm gonna walk that Spurs take back because that was a gut response. And I think, honestly, the Wizards are the team that I'm most concerned about, unless they get Wemby, and then that changes things.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree, to be honest, but I almost feel like the Wizards they're in this purgatory, right? Like they're not going to get Wemby unless they might get a Magic lottery roll and it might turn out off their 2% chance to get Wemby, but like I'd rather almost have the Spurs team and a 14% chance of getting Wemby than the Wizards team and a 2% chance. To be honest. And I also I have to agree also with your take at some point. It's like you have Brad Beal on a super max, you have Porzingis, you have Kuzma, but it's like, what are we doing here? Like it's kind of like with the Magic when they had Vucevic. It's like, what are we doing here? So I think they're just within the next year or two, they'll blow it up. They should re-sign Kuzma and then trade Beal, in my opinion, because Kuzma can be a peripheral piece to a good team, right? And so can Beal. But Beal is gonna take you out from being a bad team. You could still be a bad team with Kuzma, right? And that would almost be better, to be honest. So I tend to agree there. But on the other hand, sorry, with the Spurs, I do think it's kind of been long enough where the clean, beautiful image of the Spurs organization is kind of leaving. DeJounte had some weird stuff to say on his way out, and he's kind of walked some of that back. But between that and we obviously had the sexual assault case with Josh Primo, pop up and stuff like that. It's makes me a little nervous to see what their future is. But if the Spurs get a top 4 pick, if they pick one of the Thompson twins, Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, Wembanyama, any 5 of those guys, I'd trust to develop on the Spurs way more than I would trust them to develop on almost any other team, which is still a credit to their organization.
Right. No, I absolutely fully agree.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. So that was What's Your Take, Anthony. Some good hot takes. Also, I tend to agree on your Bucks plus Celtics versus the field take, I think. But we'll see how that goes. Now, for the next section, we're going to hear me out. Hear me out is the little section where just Anthony's going to give a hot take. I'm going to give a hot take. It can relate to just about anything in the NBA. We have not gone over these with each other at all, so we're going to surprise each other with a hot take. But yeah, Anthony, go first. You have the floor.
All right, so hear me out. My hot take is that once whatever team that Wembanyama signs to, they will be a championship contender within their third year. And so let me walk through my logic on this. This was a bit of a stronger take at the beginning of the season, but I want to stick with it just because I have all the faith in the world in him. I know that recently his play has declined a little bit, but I think that his play is going to translate incredibly in the U.S. I just think, we know this. He's like one of the greatest prospects of all time. So I'm looking at these teams that are the most likely to get him. I look at Houston. I think they have a ton of talent. And I think even though they haven't really been able to put it together, the pieces are there. They beat the Celtics. I like Jabari Smith Jr. I like Jalen Green a lot. Kevin Porter Jr. is at least talented. So that's a piece. And then if Harden's interested in coming back with Wemby, that's something right there. We just talked about the last time the Spurs had an international number 1 overall pick in Tim Duncan, pseudo international. They became championship contenders pretty quickly. If the Trailblazers happen to get him and Dame already. So I just think, and then with the Pistons, with Cade Cunningham coming back, I think that's a young core that's very intriguing. The Hornets, him and LaMelo would be really awesome to see. And then the Magic, if he signs with the Magic, that's my most strongest part of this take. I think they have so much size and he's just adding to that. And I think by his third season, Paolo will be in his fourth, Franz will be in his fifth. And I think they're just going to be so cohesive. So I think that he has that ability. So we'll see what happens, but that's my hot take.
Wow. Well, I'm French, so I got to agree with the hot take. I think it's spicy, bro. I think it's a pretty good take, though, if I'm going to be honest. It also helps Wemby in terms of every team that's really bad right now that has a good chance of getting them right. They've got stuff in place. Which I also think if you're a bad team right now, this is the perfect time to be a bad team because every bad team kind of has pretty good players outside of the Spurs. And so the Rockets, even if they win that February game against the Celtics, they don't really care. It's not really going to affect their lottery position that much when last year, after the All-Star break, OKC just decides oh, we're not winning any more games. We need a top 4 pick, right? So it's we haven't really had that because everyone has, pieces they want to develop and people are down to still win games, which is good, right? But I tend to agree. If we look at Zion, right? Zion barely plays 30 games a season. The Pelicans, when they had Zion I thought they were honestly a championship contender. I didn't think they were a favorite, but at this point, this season, when they had Zion, they looked fantastic in my opinion. And is Wembanyama going to play less games than Zion in his first 3 years? Maybe that's not everything that'll decide it, but I don't really see Wembanyama being as much of an injury prone player because as much as he is a center, he's also such a perimeter player on offense.
Oh yeah.
He's really more of a KD on offense than he is a Elijah Wan or something, right?
And from what I've heard real quick, is that he takes immaculate care of his body because he's seen all the people before him, the Greg Odens of the world, the Ralph Sampsons of the world, these really, really tall guys who their injuries just hamper them, Bill Walton. So he is doing a lot of stuff in France right now that is kind of in strengthening his feet. He saw what happened to Chet. So he's strengthening his feet, his ankles, his legs. So I think he is coming in with a mindset that he wants to protect his body and he doesn't have the same weight issues as Zion.
Absolutely agree. And also even with Chet, for example, you look at Chet, you look at Wembanyama, one of them looks like an NBA player and it's not Chet. Wembanyama really has a way bigger frame than Chet does. he doesn't have the weird back thing, you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like no flame to Chet. But yeah, like I hunch a lot too. I feel it. But like Wemby doesn't have that. He really looks like, honestly, looks better than a young Giannis in terms of frame. And
Yeah.
which I'm not saying he's going to put on weight and strengthen like Giannis, but he looks more full as a prospect at the same age than Giannis, which is very scary. It was like
And he's smooth on the court, man.
so clean, and the range. He's like the perfect player for today's NBA. Follow-up question before we get into my hot take: is he the best prospect since LeBron?
I mean, like hindsight's 2020. So, but I want to say, yeah, I don't think that there has been a number one overall. Like Anthony Davis was a pretty good prospect. Zion was a pretty good prospect. But no, I don't think so. Honestly, you?
I tend to agree. I mean, to be honest, I thought Zion after his college season was probably a better prospect than AD. And that's really thinking about the peak. But on the other hand, right, like I think had a Luka come, like some sort of Luka, had they appeared before Luka actually appeared, Luka would have been the first overall pick, right? And going into that draft, I really thought Luka should have been the first overall pick. I can never get behind drafting a center who can't shoot and doesn't like clearly switch at that first overall. Like that just doesn't make sense to me, and that's what the Suns did, right? You know, whatever. But I really thought Luka should have been number one overall. And I think the existence of Luka will also help people, like it's helped the hype with Wembanyama because you see how good Luka is, and Wembanyama isn't doing the same stuff in the EuroLeague, but man, he looks amazing. So and also last year in the Worlds, I believe it was U20s or U21s, Wembanyama just absolutely guttered Chet for the whole finals. And even though France lost, like Wembanyama was like miles better than Chet at like a year younger age. So I think that says a lot too.
Totally. And I do want to hear your take. Something else real quick that you just thought of. Quick comparison. Right in the Michael Jordan draft, they opted to pick another center who was great but didn't work out, right? Because the Trailblazers looked at their team and they said, wait, we already have a guy in this position. The Suns, when they were drafting, looked at a guy who was their main ball handler and said, we have Devin Booker.
We don't need Luka.
So let's fill the need that we have. And time again, I don't know how long teams are going to do this. Go for the best player. Don't go for a guy that is significantly more mid because it's going to fit a role, because that's not going to work out. Imagine a Devin Booker and Luka Doncic backcourt. Oh, be crazy.
Yeah. Still can't believe they did that, but honestly. Anyways, my hot take is a little bit more current. By the way, great hot take. My hot take is that the Bucks are going to win this chip by default. They are not an inspiring team. They are not substantially better, or they're not performing at a super high level of even their abilities, right? Like, it's not like Middleton is at 100%. It's not like their bench is like full. It's not like they kept Brogdon and Brogdon's still performing. You know, I think they're the best team, but they're not necessarily inspiring. But the rest of the NBA has so many faults that I think they're kind of going to win it by default. But my follow-up take to that is that if they don't win it this year, it may be their last chance to win a chip for at least 2-3 years. And I think they'll be contenders. I think they'll be obviously really good for the next 2-3 years. You have Giannis, you're going to be a top 4 team in the NBA, like whatever. But Brook Lopez is getting kind of old. He's up for free agency this year. Drew Holiday, sneaky kind of old. Middleton, I've never been a really big Middleton believer, frankly. And like this season's kind of vindicating me a little bit, which I'm kind of happy about. But like, Middleton, even in the NBA finals where they won the chip, he had 3 good games and 3 horrible games, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's not, Middleton also isn't like the super consistent force that's going to help you elevate the rest of your team. And with that, unless they manage to figure out a bench, and like they have been, like they find guys like Javon Carter, and I think guys like Margin Beauchamp are really good, but I don't really see them being like title number 1 favorites like they are this year. I don't see them being that again for another 2-3 years, just due to age and other teams popping up.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. The first thing I actually thought of on your take is it kind of reminds me of the NBA in the 70s where there just like wasn't that much talent. So like we kind of don't think very much about those. Like people don't think about the fact that Celtics won, what was it, two or three chips in the 70s. Is like the Bullets and the Sonics and the Trailblazers, all these kind of like random one-off teams that won it just because, like you said, a bit by default. I would say that the talent in the NBA right now is miles ahead of what it was in the 70s, even comparatively. So it's not like the Bucks are winning like a mid chip. Like they're still going to have to
Yes,
beat a lot of really great teams.
definitely.
By default, I mean we'll see. We'll see how the Sixers match up with the Bucks. They've actually had like really really good back and forth, so I'm excited to see how those go. I don't think I'm as strong on this take as you are. I mean, I think the Celtics, although they've been playing a little bit worse recently, do know that they can beat the Bucks. Right now it seems like the Bucks are going to have the 1 seed, so that'll definitely have something to do with it. And as for the Western Conference, I mean, we'll see what happens. I tend to agree that they're the favorite, though. On your follow-up, I feel like part of your argument as to like why they don't have this chance going forward is why I don't necessarily also agree with the full take that they're going to win by default. Like
Okay.
you said, because of Chris Middleton and because of Brook Lopez's age, like, yeah, he's playing well. But you know, injuries have been kind of happening randomly all the time right now, and especially if you're older. So I think all the things you're talking about that could happen next year could also happen this year too, like just due to age. So while I do agree that the Bucks should be the favorite, I probably don't take it as strongly as you are saying by default.
Okay. No, and I think that's fair also. It's like difficult to say, oh, this team's like gonna win the chip, right? Like we got time. We'll see. And also, like you said, the NBA talent's like so spread out. But I'm just like I keep looking at like the playoff picture and the contenders picture, and it's like no one is inspiring in any way. Like last year, even like I felt like in the West there was 3 teams you could have picked. In the East there was 4. And like this year it's almost like I don't like any of these teams. I don't see the like Denver, for example. Denver in their last like 7 to 8 games, they have looked horrible.
Oh,
Like I don't know, the Grizzlies, they have their stuff going on. Or am I gonna pick the Kings? No. So like Western Conference out of the way. Eastern Conference, you know, the Celtics haven't looked great either. This last game that they just had, you know, the bench rotations are super weird with Missoula. You got like Brogdon playing like 18 minutes, and then you got like Jaylen Brown coming out after the game talking about his like relationship with the city. It's like not all like paradise out there either. That's kind of where my default comes from. And then I'm kind of feeling like by next year, someone's gonna figure it out. Like so, whether it's even like the Mavs, like the Mavs don't need that much talent around Luka to win a chip, right? So like stuff like that. That's kind of where my take comes from. But I think you're well within your right to be like, well, if you don't think they're gonna win a chip next year or the year after, why do you think they're gonna win a chip this year? I think that's pretty fair.
yeah, but
Cool.
we'll see.
Cool. All right. So with that, we're gonna move on to our next section, which is favorite NBA blank. Okay. So this is just kind of more personal. We're kind of going to go over some things that we enjoy about the NBA, some moments and whatnot. And just, you know, this will be a little quick fire before we get back into the midst with some more takes and some more analysis. But Anthony, what's your favorite NBA moment as a fan?
Now, are we talking all time here?
All time, just as a fan, like of either your favorite team of the NBA. Up to you.
Okay, can I give 2 picks? One as a Celtics fan and then one as okay. So I will say that one of my more like memorable or favorite takes was moments was, man, there's so many, but I'm gonna say it was that OKC Thunder versus Golden State Warriors regular season game when the Warriors won 73. I think when Steph hit that crazy deep 3, and
what a shot from Curry!
Bang, yeah, and he's going nuts. And I think like that was like right in the middle of like their amazing run, and it was just so cool to see like that sort of him announcing to the world, "I'm here," and he kind of came on to, he was always like, he was a good player for a few seasons before that, even an all-star, but like not considered a top guy in the NBA by any stretch of the means. Even though they just won the chip, he was like entering that. And then this was like, yeah, no, I am here. So I'd say that one was one of my more favorite moments. And then for the Celtics, we haven't had much fortune of late, but I'll say, the Isaiah Thomas 50.
Oh, yes.
After his sister's very tragic passing against the Wizards. I hate the Wizards a lot. So I was really, really happy that this happened. And like to do it in the fashion he did it in overtime, like that was one of the craziest games that like I've been fortunate to witness. So yeah, those two moments. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's pretty good list. That Isaiah Thomas year was also like pretty magical, like overall. Like that team,
second team All NBA.
Yeah, like, and then he was never good again. Like, shout out Brad Stevens. I don't know how he did it, but like, obviously there was injuries and whatnot. But that was a magical year. And then, Steph, love that moment too. That's like one of my favorite moments. Going off that though, my favorite has to be Game 6. Where he's screaming at the Celtics fans last year. That's my favorite moment as a fan ever. Because it was like, we got that first chip, but the first chip was a little weird because it was like, you didn't have Kyrie, you didn't have K-Love. And then we win 73. We get 3-1, even after 3-1ing the Thunder. And it's like, okay, and then we get KD. And then the KD chips, like, they were fun. I'm not gonna be unhappy about like winning a chip, right? Especially with Kevin Durant and, in my opinion, the best team ever assembled in NBA history, like from top to bottom. I think they beat any team ever in a 7-game series. But the thing is, like, how much as a fan, it's like difficult to really root for a team that's like that good, right? Like, It's like we're supposed to win. Every game we lose, I was just like, this is stupid. Why are we losing? But that's like. Yeah, it's like how fun is that? So last year, like, I don't know. Chips were down. We weren't looking too great at some point. We had to go back to Boston. And Steph, he's saying, ring me. He's saying, ring me. I'm him. Yeah. My favorite, as a fan, my favorite moment. I know that hurts you.
I was at that game. I went to Game 6 and I watched, and I got to say, like, the Celtics fan in me was obviously disappointed. Once I got to that game, it was just clear that nothing was going to happen. We just stayed a comfortable 10 to 14 points behind you guys for the whole series, but it was cool to really see Steph break through in that sense and just kind of like be that guy, be the man and own it. And anytime you get a chance to see like these players like get coronated as champions, that's an amazing opportunity to watch. So hate it as a Celtics fan, love it as an NBA fan.
Of course. And then, to be honest, my favorite moment as an NBA fan, I still can't watch this back. Like, I still can't watch any of this back. It's LeBron's block on Iguodala. That whole fourth quarter and that whole second half is something like the most top tier competitive NBA basketball I've ever seen in my life. And like, just as like a basketball purist, it was like unbelievable to watch. And like, I still can't watch it back, but like, I remember it being good. It being good. With that, we're going to move into our second to last section. NBA, no bias allowed. This is where we're going to discuss and try to take our fandom out of it, be a little bit more analysis-based, analytical, maybe historical-based. We'll see. And we got 4 quick questions. Number 1, who's your MVP? We kind of touched on this, but who's your MVP?
Yeah, I'm not going to delve into this too deeply. I feel like it's Embiid, voter fatigue. Great season, great end to the season. Beat Jokic already. We'll see what happens in their matchup that's coming up. But for now, I think it's Embiid.
Totally agree. I think it's like, it's kind of just narrative based a lot of times, MVP, like, not in a bad way. Like, I think narrative should drive that award because at some point you can kind of make the argument for whoever. So it's like, a lot of it is based off feeling. And I feel like usually the feeling is right. So I think it should be Embiid. He's not the best player in the NBA, though, like we discussed, in my opinion. But, voter fatigue, and also Giannis has kind of reached that LeBron level where we don't really care. It's like, I don't really care about Giannis winning another MVP. He won his, like we'll figure that out later. That no longer has any bearing on his historical status, in my opinion. So let's get Embiid one. That should have a bearing of some sort on his historical status, given I don't know if he's going to win a chip anytime soon, to be
Right.
honest. So like, I almost feel like for NBA history wise, Embiid having another MVP, or sorry, an MVP
Yep.
is like pretty important. And like Jokic got his too. And then voter fatigue there. I do think if there wasn't voter fatigue, Jokic should probably win it. I don't think his team's actually like as good as we think,
Yep.
to be honest. But that's another discussion for another day. Which team can least afford an injury coming up in these next month or two? Which team cannot afford any sort of injury?
Oh, I mean, well, we just saw what happened with the Clippers. I think they're a little deeper, so they'll be all right, man. If it's the Suns, man, for me. I think if they can't get Kevin Durant, like, or if Kevin Durant's healthy and then Booker's out, like it's so top heavy and they need them to be there. So that's the short answer is for that. I mean, obviously, if the Bucks lose Giannis or if the Celtics lose Tatum, or so, I mean, but I guess just based off of depth, I think the Suns really need as much help as they can. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also think like obviously any team, if they lose their best player, they're screwed anyways, right? Like it's whatever. But like in let's say the Suns are up 3-1 against the Warriors, for example,
Right.
and then D Book is out for the rest of the series. Whoo!
Yeah.
Like you might pick the Warriors. Like, it's like stuff like that. But
Right.
if the Celtics are up 3-1 against the Bucks again, and Jason Tatum's out,
Yeah.
the Celtics, they're going to win one game, right?
We saw that against the Warriors where Tatum decided he didn't really know how to play basketball for a little bit. And there was that crazy first game where, in spite of that, like Derek White and Al Horford just went crazy from three, and we got that first game. We've seen that the Celtics can win a game, like you were saying. Like, I mean, when we were rolling, granted, this when we were rolling, I went in with my girlfriend, Emily, to a Celtics game. She'd never been. We got there a little bit late. It was against the Hornets, so with a grain of salt. We were already up by 20, and we watched the whole game, and we were about up by 20 to 30 to 40 for most of the game. And I was like, are they just sitting Tatum because like he's like they're so far ahead? He was rested. So like we definitely have that depth. It reminds me of a lesser version of how good the Warriors were when Steph was out for a few games in some of those earlier playoff runs, and you guys were still able to win games, just due to your depth.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think it's funny. I fully agree, and I think it's the Suns, and I don't think it's close, just because, especially we're seeing this now, and we've talked off, and I feel like I've made this point before, but if you don't have KD or Booker, there's so much scoring pressure on either KD or Booker, like whichever one's not out. And they don't really have other scorers on that team. Like, and let's say even if CP3 is out, right? Like, do we think Cam Payne is going to come in and really affect a playoff series in that way? Not saying that CP3 even can affect a playoff series in that way anymore, but if CP3 can play 30 minutes a game in a playoff series, like they need every minute they can get from anyone just because they don't have depth. If everyone's healthy on that team, they're going to be like really good, right? But they also haven't been together. They like KD played 5 games on that team and then got hurt. Like we'll have to see what happens there. It's funny. I totally agree. Next question: can the Kings win a first round series, and will they?
Ooh, good question. Well, let's look at if the playoffs started right now. It's Kings Warriors. I think the Kings put up a good fight in that series. I think it's maybe like a hard fought 6. But I think Warriors clear. Now, if those standings shake up, they're 2 games back of the Grizzlies, so it's unlikely. But if they could crawl into that 2 seed, maybe they could beat out like the Timberwolves. So we'll have to see. It's possible, but it depends on who they play. So yes, they could, but again, like they have to be lucky. I don't think they beat the Lakers. I don't think that they beat the Warriors. I think that they'll probably lose to the Mavs. So it would probably have to be like Timberwolves or like, Clippers without Paul George and things don't work out really well, or maybe, the Suns like have a bit of a free fall and they have to. So things have to kind of fall into place the right way. But for now, I think that they don't quite have it yet.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but like I think they actually will end up winning a first round series. Like I think there's a good chance the Warriors move up, and then like a Clippers Kings series without Paul George. I kind of like the Kings there. I mean, my issue with the Kings, they don't have wing defenders, and or like they don't have enough of them.
You
But
know,
like
defenders.
yeah, they don't have defenders. You're right. In general, but like the Clippers is kind of a team where like, okay, Kawhi will get 40 a game for this series. Are the Clippers still going to win if Kawhi scores 40 a game without Paul George? Like maybe
Right.
not.
Right.
But like if they play the Warriors round one, there's a lot of Warriors fans that I've seen that don't like the idea of playing the Kings because they play a similar brand as the Warriors right now in terms of like no defense, a lot of scoring, and like Mike Brown is the coach of the Kings now. He knows a lot of the Warriors sets and was like a big part of our defense last year. But like, dude, the talent. It's like if we lose the Kings in the first round, that says more about the Warriors and the Kings, right?
Mhm.
Like if we're being
Yep.
real. And like I don't know, we'll see. I definitely think actually so I think they will. I think they will beat a first round series,
Bro,
win a
that's a
first
hot
round
take.
series. That's my hot take, but like they would have to not play the Warriors. And
Mhm.
like right now it looks like they will. So like I could easily be wrong on that hot take.
Right.
But I think Sabonis is incredible. And I think Sabonis's game is going to translate perfectly to a playoff environment, which I think is like an underrated aspect of their team. Like that slow it down big who can do a lot of facilitating. And they have a lot of just shot creators and shot makers, where it's like guys like Kevin Herter or like Malik Monk. Like
Yep.
Malik Monk can score 25 in one playoff game in a series. It might not be
Yep.
all seven, but
Yep.
like those moments will be big. We'll get to this also in the All NBA section. Not a big believer in De'Aaron Fox just yet, but like I'm willing to be proven wrong. So we'll see.
Probably the Jerry West clutch player of the year.
Probably, but like, in a clutch circumstance, do you want De'Aaron Fox over like Jason Tatum? I know we roast Jason Tatum a lot, but like,
I'll take Tatum for now.
yeah, like it's kind of that aspect of it, especially in a playoff circumstance. But like the Kings, if they won a first round series and then we're super competitive in a second round series, I would not be surprised. But like, we'll see, to be honest. I'm not super high on them, but I think they will win a first round series. So we'll see. Finally, my last question. Philly fans are going to be mad. Are the 76ers a real championship contender?
Um, I would be very surprised if they won the championship.
Okay.
I don't. I'd be like less surprised than if the Cavs won the championship. Like, but they're on the periphery of that bubble, so I'd be pretty surprised.
Okay. Do you have is that like a James Harden thing, or is that like a Joel Embiid thing? Is that a roster construction thing?
I just think it's so rare for a team to kind of break through in their first season. Like the only team that I can think of that like kind of went from like middling to like championship just like that was the Warriors. But the
And that was
Warriors
like
also like
that was like an NBA also like the whole look of the NBA was changing at that point. It was almost less about the Warriors than the way the game was played.
right. And like also like even I mean the Warriors were favorites going into that postseason too. Like even though they had been first rounded that the year before, like they won 67 games, like they're on top of it. So like I just don't see. I mean, I think Embiid will play very well. Like I don't think he won't play well, but he's gonna have to. Well, it's probably going to be Celtics, Sixers in the second round, and it might be Sixers Heat in the first round. So they're going to have to deal with the Heat, who have been tough for them. They're going to have to deal with the Celtics, who have been tough for them. And then if they manage to get through that, they get the prize of playing the Bucks. So I just think right now, like the top of the East is so hard to get through, and the matchups aren't really looking in their favor. Plus, like you'd mentioned about Harden, I think even though this is going to be his first or second postseason or what of late with a guy that's obviously better than him and he's healthy, he kind of struggles. I know he has some good games in the playoffs, but I just don't really trust him. So
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's fair. I actually a lot of my worry about them kind of stems from actually Doc Rivers over everything. Like I don't think Doc Rivers is really that great of a coach. I think we would see their offense kind of develop a lot more around Tyrese Maxey and like less dribbling of the ball while being stationary. I mean, I gave you the stat, like I believe it was last week, that Harden and Embiid of all NBA starters run the second and third least on average, behind Chris Paul.
Yeah.
So like that's like definitely a little scary, especially in the, in the playoffs where when you dribble all game, especially in the playoffs, it's a lot different for the role players than like if you're in Sacramento on a Tuesday and you haven't touched the ball in a quarter and then you got to hit a three at the beginning of the second quarter. It's a lot easier in Sacramento on a Tuesday than the Bucks in game 7. And like that's one of the aspects, for example, why I think the Rockets lost against the Warriors when they didn't have CP3 back in 2018, right? Is because now we get back into just dribble. Like it's really going to hurt the ability for your role players to be effective. And I think that's also an issue with the Mavericks and whatnot. But to be honest, I do think they actually really have the roster of a championship team, which is kind of my base confusion with this is like, if you look at it as a top 3 options, if someone told me a team has Embiid, Harden, and Tyrese Maxey, like that's a very good top 3 options. I'm very high on Tyrese Maxey. I think he's a very good player, but it's like, if you throw Brook Lopez and Giannis in the paint at Embiid, you're really going to like stifle him a good amount. And then you got Drew on Harden. It's like, okay, Maxey, go score 40. Like that's when it gets muddled a little bit. And I think given their offense, I don't really see that happening. I also think if the Sixers made it to the finals, every Western Conference team matches up super well against the Sixers, despite not matching up well against the Celtics and the Bucks. Like I think like the Warriors, for example, they would just be like, Embiid, go score 50. We're going to space out the floor and all of our guys are going to score 50. Like I think that's, or like, the Nuggets, similar thing, that's kind of, I think where the issue is. But, if they get second rounded or even if they get first rounded by the Heat, I don't think they should freak out. Like it's year 1.5 of this team being together. And hopefully Maxey gets past the torch a little bit more. That's kind of my take.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
We'll have to see what happens. Okay. Now for the final section are all NBA predictions. Okay. So
you want to do this first team, or do you want to do all 3 teams?
Let's go first team. I kind of like it. We'll go first team, second team, third team. All right. For a little background, I think Anthony and I both went off a little bit of what we would like to see a little bit more than our predictions. But I think that our predictions were also definitely tied into this in some way. And we'll get into that as those cases come up. But Anthony, if you want to give your All-NBA first team, we have some disagreements here off the rip. So,
sure. So I actually think we don't have too many disagreements. I actually was thinking on it. I moved Curry up to my first team. The reason why I was hesitant was just because of the lack of games. That being said, I think he's proven that he is so much better of a point guard than anybody else in the league right now. I mean, it's amazing point guard play, but like he's just that guy. And so I do think that he, should qualify for first team. I don't know that he's played enough games to actually record stats yet.
So he's at 47. So I believe if he kind of plays the rest of the year, his stats will get recorded, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if he plays, and so I think if his stats are recorded, then that should be enough. So I do think so. I got Luka, Curry, Tatum, Giannis, and then I really struggled here, but I think if Embiid wins the MVP, which I think he will, I think he'll also be first team All NBA. So that's my first team.
Okay, I mean, in that case, yeah, I agree. I do have a little bit of a hot take that I think there's a chance this happens, and I put it in my prediction, but just I'll vocalize why is like, I think there's a good chance Embiid wins MVP, but Jokic gets first team All NBA. I think those voters tend to be a little bit different in terms of the NBA. The MVP will go a little bit more off narrative when All NBA will go a little bit off of like best player. Like we've seen LeBron get the benefit of the doubt a few times on the All NBA over the last few years, like stuff like that. So I think there's a chance that happens. I put that as my prediction, but like, if I'm picking Embiid as MVP, I'm probably picking Embiid as All NBA first team, right? I also think Steph is getting very lucky because he's back at the perfect time. His counting stats should be recorded by the end of the year, and Dame's getting shut down pretty much. And if Dame wasn't getting shut down and Dame got to about 30, I think he's at 31.1 or something points per game right now. If Dame could get up to like 32 over the course of a full season, it'd be pretty difficult to pick against Dame.
Dude,
but
he's at 32.
He's at 30 exactly. I think it would be pretty difficult if he gets to like if Dame had gotten to like a 65 games played and like had 32 points a game, that'd be a different conversation. I believe he's at 58 right now. And like at some point, if Curry hits 55 games played and Dame's at 60, it's like I think most voters are going to take Curry -5 games over Dame, no matter how good Dame is at some point. But we'll see. I definitely think that's like an interesting comparison, and I think it'll be a good litmus test for the voters as well. But yeah, Luka, Tatum, Giannis, and then Embiid / Jokic, we're on the same page.
All right. So second team. So this is where I think our agreements are going to start to stretch a bit. I have Shea. So I think, so Shea's my first point guard. I think he's been amazing this season, and he's like really helped buoy the Thunder. Then I got Ja. Although he's missed some decent amount of games, I just think he's been pretty spectacular, and they're the 2 seeds. So then I got KD. KD has been amazing. I'm worried about the lack of games, but he's just clearly like so arguably like you can say he's like the second best player in the world if he's healthy, without like other guys too, but he's in that argument. Then I got Sabonis, man. I've loved what Sabonis has done this year. I think it's really shown that I think a lot of fans thought that the Kings lost that trade with Halliburton, but now it's really looking like he's playing so well. His pops, I'm sure, is so proud of him. And I mean, I just love it. They're the 3rd seed in the West, so I got to give it up to my boy. And then again, for the center position, it's Embiid, Jokic, so I have Jokic.
Okay, yeah, I mean, tend to agree with most of those picks. I went a different way with this. So I went Shea. I believe I had Ja when we had talked about this, but I actually adjusted to Dame.
Okay.
And then I went KD, Jimmy Butler, and Embiid. And so the thing about Sabonis, right? Sabonis, I think, would deserve an All-NBA second team berth more so than Jimmy Butler. I just think they're going to pigeonhole him into the center position, and then he'll make All-NBA third team. So I have him, spoiler alert, at All-NBA third team. I just kind of think that's what's going to happen with the position locks, which, I don't love. It should just be 3 front court, 2 back court. But, it is what it is. Or even positionless, but it is what it is. And that's why I have Sabonis on third team center and then Jimmy on second team. Jimmy, he didn't make the All-Star team, right? He's been unbelievable. He's clearly KD is in the same conversation as Tatum, Giannis. That's a different conversation that Jimmy's in. But out of all the rest of the wings in the league, small forwards, power forwards, I think Jimmy's in kind of his class by himself. And he's been incredible over the last 2-3 weeks, just absolutely amazing. And I have Dame over Ja. I think Ja actually should make the All-NBA second team over Dame. So this is where I kind of try to take out my personal opinion from this. I'm just worried that Ja's narrative is going to hurt his chances of making an All-NBA team. And I think people might just not realize that he's going to have played similar to as many games as Dame and probably have had a bigger influence on his team than Dame. And he was probably better than Dame this season, even though Dame scored 32. But I'm just worried voters, again, it's the media thing. It might not be voter fatigue, but almost media fatigue of Ja. And that's what makes me a little nervous. Shea, second team All-NBA. I'm glad we both agree there because I think he's been incredible this season. That was my last thing.
Yeah. No argument. Yeah. Amazing two-way point guard.
And also making that team, if we look at the Lakers roster construction, then we look at the Thunder roster construction going into the season, no one would have told you if you take out LeBron and you take out Shea, the Thunder would be better than the Lakers, right? Obviously the supporting cast around the Lakers is seemingly a lot better. And I feel like Shea is not as good as on paper as maybe LeBron is. But I think there's an aspect that Shea, you can develop around Shea. Jalen Williams can start averaging 20 points per game after the All-Star break around a guy like Shea. Jared Vanderbilt's not expanding his role into a 16 points a game scorer next to LeBron. as much as LeBron's been hurt and whatnot. But I think that's like an interesting aspect to Shea, which I'm really curious to see. I think that can take him into like a top 5, top 6 player stratosphere, is like the fact that like players seemingly get a lot better around Shea. Like, and consistently it's happened. Josh Giddey. And also these are young players who should get better, right? Obviously there's that. But that development aspect, I think, is a huge argument to Shea, in my opinion.
He's so smooth with the man. I mean,
Yeah.
he just looks he plays such an unorthodox style of basketball on the court, and it's just so much fun to watch. So
Yeah, he's incredible. And then I'll get into my third team. We're gonna disagree. This is gonna be our most disagreements. I have Donovan Mitchell. Whoops. I have Donovan Mitchell at my first guard spot. My second guard spot, I have De'Aaron Fox. And again, I think it should be Ja. Like, I think Fox should be the one probably knocked off this NBA list for Ja. I just don't know if it'll happen. I think all the other players kind of have narratives going in their way, which is, it is what it is. Then I have Markkanen, Julius Randle, and Sabonis. Julius Randle should not be on an all-NBA team. I think Brunson is a better player than him, frankly. And it still bothers me a little bit that Randle made an all-star team over Brunson this year. I think Randle is what he is. Brunson's the guy who's elevating people, which I always want to give credit to. But Brunson should not make it over Donovan Mitchell, Fox, or Ja when Randle positionally just has less competition. Right. And then I think Markkanen deserves a huge shout out. I think I would actually put Markkanen over Randle. That team is also not good. And he's been very, very good. And he's been very, very consistent. Actually, since the All-Star break, I believe his stats have been just as good, if not better, than they were before the All-Star break, which says a lot considering like Clarkson hasn't played since like March 1st. Like some of that team's most relevant guys just don't play right now. And I think it says a lot about him. And then Sabonis at my 5, just because, Sabonis should be the second team All-NBA forward, but he's not. So I got to put him at the 5 spot. Is what I expect to happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think just on your points real quick, Markkanen, I definitely thought about him. If there was a 4th team All-NBA, that would make it easier. But I think the Jazz have kind of like started to recently. So I think that's going to keep him out of it. Plus, I just don't think this is also kind of like what I believe the media is going to perceive. I think some of that like darling like aspect of it, like when they were, the 1 seed, the 2 seed early in the season, like it would be way easier to put him there. But I think since they've like missed it and they're probably going to miss the play-in, probably not. As for Randle, I actually thought about Randle as well, just to give the Knicks some love because they have been playing so well. And his counting stats are really good. And he had a 57 piece recently. But I just think that the guys that I have ahead of him are the reason why. So it's not a slight on him. It's just a compliment to the guys, I'm going to say. So I'll also preface this. I was listening to one of the Hoop Collective podcasts recently, and they had mentioned that the way that they might actually count the votes might be a little bit different. So I'm curious to see how this might have actually affected your thinking. And I don't know if it's sure or not, but they were mentioning this is how voters might think. As we know, Embiid and Jokic, one of them has to be second team, which stinks. They had been talking about an idea of actually counting votes for if a player could be a shooting guard or small forward, or if a guy could be a center and a power forward. They were considering with the idea of counting like power forward and center votes as just votes. Rather than like those are votes for center and those are votes for power forward. So that's kind of part of like my thinking here which is where I'm going to go with. So for my third team, I've same with you. I have Mitchell. I think he's had a fantastic first season. I have Damian Lillard simply because of like how bad the Blazers have been, but I think that he's been so good. I think you could switch him with Ja, like second team, third team. So this is where I put Jaylen Brown, simply due to the fact that I think that he could be considered a small forward enough of the time, even though his primary position is shooting guard, where I could see enough votes happening for him to get into it. Definitely curious to hear what your pushback is. And this is on the assumption that the NBA might be voting in the style. So I might have to walk that back because if he's just a shooting or if he's a guard, it's kind of tough to take any of those other guys away from that list and put Jaylen in front of them. And that we haven't even included Fox, even though I'd probably put Jaylen ahead of Fox. For my other forward position, based off of this thinking, if we were just to do forwards, it would be Jimmy Butler. I'm with you. I think he's been killing it recently. I think he deserves it. I think, the Heat are on a bit of a tear. They're 40-34 now, and he just strikes fear into the hearts of anybody in the playoffs. And then sneaky for my center, this is again like the power forward center argument. Triple J. He's likely to win Depoy. So if he's Depoy and he's kind of helped buoy the Grizzlies, I think that he's gonna get that last spot. And I also don't see any other centers sort of ahead of him if we're doing my hybrid option. So
it just my personal thinking, it would be a little shocking to see the NBA switch up the voting things and not officially announce it in their capacity earlier. But first of all, that would be great if they adjusted the voting like that. I'm really pro positionless voting and whatnot. But I love the JJJ take, basically. That's my big thing. I think JJJ is an all-NBA player. That my worry is that he just gets charted as a forward and people get lost in the sauce with that because, he does play with a center most of the time. But JJJ is an all-NBA talent. He's an all-NBA player. I'm just worried about the voters recognizing that and kind of going with like JJJ should make it over Randall and Markkanen in terms of player influence over the game of basketball, in my opinion. But I think voters tend to want to take the best player on a team rather than the second best player on a team. But I think JJJ also should win Defensive Player of the Year. Dude, their starting lineup, when we think about it, it's Ja, it's Bane, Dylan Brooks, good defender. I obviously don't like him. Good defender. And then they'll play with Steven Adams. In my opinion, Steven Adams, John Bane are all minus defenders in a playoff circumstance. Adams in a regular season circumstance is fine, of course. But JJJ has to cover for mid defenders all game. Luke Kennard is not a good defender. I love watching him play. He's not a good defender. And JJJ does this while helping this defense become, I believe they're top 5 right now in defense, in points allowed. So it's I think they're fantastic. I think JJ is fantastic. I think he should be on this list. And I wish I had thought of this. I wish I had stolen your take about JJ ahead of time. My worry about Jaylen Brown is that I would not put him over Fox. I think Fox deserves a lot of credit. Also, again, I think that Kings team is not that good. If Kevin Huerter was playing with Trae Young, who was giving him open shots a lot last year, and Kevin Huerter wasn't this good playing against Fox. I think there's some sort of aura around this Kings and this Fox situation that I think voters will give credit to. But I agree with you in the sense that I would put Dame, Ja, etc. ahead of him. I just put Fox in there because I do think he's a little bit of a media darling right now. And if he wins clutch player, maybe some All-NBA voters kind of trick themselves into also picking him All-NBA.
Sure. Yeah.
I would hope De'Aaron Fox does not make All-NBA though, frankly. So I hope my prediction is wrong. Last thing, Jimmy is second team. I had Jimmy second team just because I don't think Sabonis will qualify for that spot. You had him third team. Right. That I don't care. If anything, I would prefer Sabonis to be second team than Jimmy. I just don't know if it'll work with the playoff with the position modifiers. And then on Jaylen, the issue is I don't think he'll get enough votes as both a wing and a guard because in your mind, when you think of that starting lineup, right, it's Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown at the small forward. Then it's Tatum, Horford, Rob Williams, right? I just think that's just people view Jaylen Brown as a guard, even though if he was on the Warriors, he'd be their small forward / power forward. Exactly. So I think that's kind of the issue there. But in general, I think it's pretty good. I don't think we really disagreed on much except for mostly the voters' takes rather than our own. But we'll revisit this at some point. But yeah,
we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to see how many of our predictions we got right.
Absolutely. And that's mostly what I guess this podcast is about, is just being able to go back and see how our predictions did and roasting ourselves, probably. Yeah, exactly. So exactly. With that, I think we covered everything we wanted to cover in about an hour or so. Anthony, is there anything else you want to bring up on the first episode of the Spittin Hoops podcast?
Man, it's a good question. I think Yeah, I think this has been a great first podcast. I'm really happy for all of our listeners at the moment who've been able to become so educated.
Yeah, dude, for sure. And obviously, so we'll be posting this on YouTube, and eventually we'll have like clips on YouTube. If at some point we want to transition and kind of expand that to Spotify, if people want audio versions or whatnot, we'll make that decision then. It's episode 1. We're trying to get some, obviously some content out before we make super long-term planning. But ideally, we're going to try to do this once a week. So we'll have that coming up for you guys. Hopefully another episode next week, and hopefully with some new sections. We've already planned out some future sections that we're going to be doing, and maybe we'll also tie in some more historical stuff. I think that's where Anthony and I really excel, is kind of the history of the game of basketball. And so I think we'll definitely be tying in a little bit more of that into our future episodes. But yeah, with that,
We'll be Spittin Hoops.
Yeah, it's been Spittin Hoops. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right, take it easy, guys.